Okay, so they give us a balance sheet, you guys, on June 30th. And then we know that they're a merchandising company, and they tell us what the estimated sales are for July, August, September, and October. And then they tell us what they expect to collect. What do they tell us that they expect to collect? How much are they going to get in the month of sale?
35%.
Looks like they're going to get 35% in that, and then the other 65% in the next month, right? So we're doing our cash collections. Can you hit the lights for me, Jess? And one more time, let's just go ahead and reinforce this. What months go across the top again? The months that we're actually budgeting for. When am I giving my cash, or when am I paying my cash? And then down the side goes what? When did that sale originate, or when did that debt originate if I'm talking about cash disbursements? So obviously the first thing you always have to kind of think about before you jump into the body is what's left over from the prior month. And I'm going to pick that right up from my AR. Now, also let me ask you this and make sure you understand what I'm asking. If I'm a company that just does cash sales, do I have to do one of these schedules? Why not? It's all about sales on account. So you have to pick out what percentage of the sales are on account and what percentage of the sales are flat cash. And those that are flat cash don't go in here at all, do they? Okay, so did you get these numbers, 3565, 3565, and then September, obviously you only do the 35 because that 65 goes to October, and we're only doing the third quarter. So these are essentially the amounts that I'm expecting to collect from my sales on a monthly basis. Is everybody feeling pretty comfortable with this? Yay, nay? The second part of the, what are you laughing at?
So if we stop in September, we don't continue on into October with this part of it?
No, because they asked us only for third quarter.
Oh, okay.
Then they wanted us in 2A to do a merchandise purchases budget. And they tell us in number 3, excuse me, the merchandise 40% is paid in the month of purchase, 60% in the month following, and all of the accounts payable on June 3rd or June 30th is paid in July. The format here, we had done in the last week, we did a production budget, and then we did direct materials, direct labor, and overhead. This is a merchandiser, so you don't have those three budgets, do you? You just have a purchases budget. What do I need to buy? And they tell us that we need to purchase 60% of sales is going to be our COGS. So I go straight up to the sales number, multiply that by 60%. I've got to do my desired ending inventory, which is a percentage of next month's sales. So where's the math for this 41.4? What times what?
138,000 for August.
You're going to write a formula, aren't you? And you're going to go up to the next month, pick up their cost of goods sold. What do I need next month? And say, I want, 30% of that on hand at the end of the month. So here's what I need to meet this month's sales. Plus, here's what I need to have on hand to give me some wiggle room next month. And then, of course, you always have to subtract what did you start with. Therefore, I need to purchase 105.4. How'd you do on this one? Can I see a show of hands how many people got it right? Okay, so for those of you that didn't, ladies back here, what were you struggling with? One more time, you got half of it right, but what? So your formula down here was incorrect? Is that what you're telling me? Okay, did you have anything in here at all for ending inventory?
Yeah, we have all of them.
So can you tell me which cell you didn't do the equation correctly in? I mean, it's not so important that you say it out loud, but if you didn't get it right, what I'm interested in is, do you see exactly which piece of it you didn't get right and how come? I mean, if you wrote a bad formula, okay, well, say la vie, but you can tell me, oh gosh, I subtracted rather than added there. That's what I want to know is, do you know what you did wrong if you didn't get the right numbers? Okay.
I'm not really sure what number I went with. Actually, it might have been, I might have went with the actual sales and then.
Rather than sales times 60%.
Right.
Okay.
So.
So, yeah, as long as you can troubleshoot what you did wrong, I'm good with that. Then the next thing they're asking us for our disbursements on our purchases. And once we get what we've got to purchase, and if you didn't get these numbers, you can't get B right, can you? But once you got what you had to purchase, then they tell us, what percentage of that did I pay for in the current month? 40% in the current month, 60% in the following month, right? So this 42,160, can anybody tell me what the formula is for that? What times what?
It was 60%.
Yep. Actually, I think it was 40% a month of, and then 60 the next, right?
That's 40% of your purchases.
Right. So in this cell, you'd say equals whatever this cell number is times 0.4, right? How are you doing getting back into Excel and feeling good about relative versus absolute referencing and what you need to copy across? Do I absolute it with the dollar signs? And feeling like getting reacquainted with Excel? Yeah, so 40 and 60, 40 and 60, 40%. And then why did I pick up the 71.1? Where did that come from? Yeah, that was prior month, so that was the 60% still standing out there from June, right? Okay, so the next thing they want me to do is a budgeted income statement. And we know what our sales are. They've given that to us. We know what our cost of goods sold is. We're picking that number up. Oh, that's just 60%, right? Right, 60% of the 660. And then they tell us our S&A is 60 grand a month. And I don't think I have any interest, so my net income's 84,000. Obviously, if you'd missed something above, you're going to struggle getting this. And I'm not going to ask you in an exam to take something all the way to an income statement or a balance sheet, just simply because we're not going to have time, in a 1-hour test. But this is the culmination of the master budgeting process.
Do we need to know, like, all these side things, like, what the sales cost of goods, well, obviously income statement is easier, but, like, for example, on, like, the manufacturing overhead budget, all those.
Yes.
We'll need to know everything that we add when we take away.
Well, what is overhead budget?
Well, I think.
Right, variable and fixed.
Okay.
So you are going to need to know that. You start with your activity driver times your rate.
Okay.
Plus fixed. And that is your budget, and then what do you have to subtract to get to cash?
Okay. That's a good question.
Depreciation. Yeah.
You have the budget set up for
Probably not. And I can choose any of them, and you need to be able to regurgitate it. But all of the inventory ones are the same thing over and over. What do I need, plus what do I want at the end of the period, minus what did I start with?
Okay.
Right? The labor and the overhead budgets, I've got to give you a rate and how many hours.
Okay.
And then anything like S&A or overhead, you've got to ask yourself the question, is there a depreciation component I need to pull out to get to cash? So here's your balance sheet. I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time on this. Basically, they're asking you to recreate what had happened during the period. we're not going to be going all the way through a balance sheet in testing situation, and honestly, I'd like to spend more time getting to our Utah Corp, if that's okay. Okay, so now we are on practice problem number 16. And this one asks us to take a look at direct materials and direct labor. They tell us the number of units I'm producing. They tell us that it takes 8 grams to produce one unit, and that they want to end the quarter with 25% of the following quarter's production needs. So whenever you see something like this, what's the very first thing that you have to do on the budget? I've got number of units, but it's not one raw material per one unit. What do I have to do first? Exactly. You've got to make that conversion, don't you, from how many units am I producing to how many units of raw material do I make? How many pounds or gallons or grams or whatever. So that is going to be your first 2 rows. I don't need 5,000 grams of raw material. I'm making 5,000 finished good units times 8 grams per unit. I need 40,000. And then, Gretchen, it just goes into that same model. Here's what I need, plus here's what I want at the end of this quarter, minus here's what I started with. So how much do I need to purchase? 50,000, 62, etc. How much does each gram cost me? $1.20. How well are you guys doing putting these budgets together without sitting there with your book open? I would heartily suggest to you that you go through and do the review for this chapter without your book open. Because if you're doing it only with your book open, what does that say come testing time? Right.
So, yeah, but so you gotta have that whole line thing memorized?
The thing is, it's not so much memorized as it's understanding what it is. This right here is in pretty much, well, is in every single budget that has anything to do with inventory. What do I need, plus what do I want at the end of the period, minus what did I start with? That's cost of goods sold. That's cost of goods manufactured. That's finished goods inventory. That's direct materials purchases. I mean, it's those same lines are over and over and over.
Do we do our sale in Excel, or we do it by hand?
You'll do it by hand. When you're going to a raw materials budget, you've got to start by converting how many grams, pounds, gallons do I need for each unit. And you have to end with how much does each of those cost me. So it's not, and I've been trying to say that all through this chapter. I don't need, memorizing 10 budgets, they're the same ones over and over and over. Do I care that your words look exactly like this? Heck no. But do you have to have, what do I need plus ending inventory minus beginning? Yeah. And then they ask in the second part of this for us to do our, did we do direct labor? Where's direct labor? Did we have to do that? Oh, here it is. So same thing. Do I need 5,000 hours for 5,000 units? No, I've got to make the conversion. How many hours do I need for each unit? 0.2. So I'm going to have to buy 1,000 hours of labor at $11.50. Then they ask us to do your schedule of expected cash disbursements. And they tell us how much once, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here, my bad. Once I have this 60,000, they tell me that I pay for how much of that in the month of purchase. 60%, right? So 60,000 times 0.6, 60,000 times 0.4. And then the last practice problem, number 19. Again, more practice on disbursements and receipts. So were you feeling pretty comfortable that by the time you got through all these, this was probably a couple hours of budgets, huh? Yeah. So were you feeling like it was enough practice? Yay, nay, huh?
I did get through the practice problems and those two other stuff.
So if you didn't get a chance to get through these, you really need to do that. Additionally, and you might want to wait to do this till right before the test, but page 368 and 369, that would be a great prep to go through those budgets without your book open. Basically, everything we've been doing is a master budget. Okay, you can go ahead and take a look at 19. It's posted. What I'd really like to do now is spend our last half hour setting up our budget for Utah Corporation. What we've already done is our cash disbursements and our cash receipts, sub-budgets. So let's focus on actually setting up the cash budget itself. So you should open up the Excel spreadsheet where you've got your, Jess, you might need to just change computers. And let's pull up our budget. Let's get out the little piece of paper that talks about Utah Corp. And then let's see if we can get this thing set up. So you've got Excel open. I'm going to just do it on the smartboard because I think it's easier to illustrate. But I'd like you guys to be doing it on Excel. How many months are we doing the budget for? 2. So let's get our 2 columns. Well, first off, put your title up there, right? Top of the sheet. What's the name of what we're doing? Those are our sub-budgets that we're going to use those numbers to feed into our big budget. What are we calling that? Just a cash budget? Yeah. Cash budget, Utah Corp, May and June 2015. Okay, and again, you guys have your cash collections and your cash receipts budget. Make sure to open that spreadsheet because you're going to need to access those cells, right? All right, what are we starting our cash budget with? Yeah, you got to start with, beginning balance, right? So I'm reading. Does everybody still have their sheet? I'm looking at this. How am I picking up my beginning cash balance for May 1st? What do I have? Yeah, let's reacquaint ourselves with this. Is everybody with me? Has everybody got their spreadsheet up? Okay. Where am I picking up from this my beginning cash balance for May? Give me the number. Everybody see that? 23.4, because that's my April 30th balance. If I put anything up here that you don't know where it comes from, please let me know straight away. Okay, the next thing that we're going to add to that is what? Here's what I started with. Now what am I going to add?
Yes.
Your receipts, right? What did I get? You guys have those numbers in your sub-budget. So are you going to type in the numbers or are you going to do an equals? You're going to use the formula equals and then go pick up your number that has your total cash receipts for May. That's why we did those sub-budgets. Did we put the AR collections and the cash sales together? Like what numbers do you guys have for cash receipts? For May? Yeah, total. Okay, great. What do I do? Let's put it in. What were your cash receipts for June? 244.2. Yep. Do you have the beginning balance for June yet? No. Is that stressing you out, or are you just leaving it blank? Exactly. You've got to get to the end of May, and then you're going to write a formula. So actually, you know what I think I'm going to do is anything that's got a little dot by it, you wrote a formula to access another cell. So this should say equals, you know, whatever worksheet's got your 199.4, and equals whatever worksheet's got your 244.2. That's why we did those schedules on the side, because it would be too busy if it was all in here. So if I take what I started with and I add what I got, what should we call that? Yeah, cash available. And again, I'm not going to get super hung up on labels as long as they basically tell me what, you know, what it is. Yes, ma'am.
How do you bring it over from the other sheet? I keep trying to bring
Yeah,
it over.
I'll show you. So, and write a formula in here. What plus what equals cash available?
So you
Yeah. Sorry.
have to hit enter to transfer over?
You do. So equals, and go get it. Yep, and then hit enter.
And that's all you do?
That's it.
Okay, so that's not.
And then just go down and name your sheet. So double click on sheet 1 and call it cash receipts and disbursements. You guys, at the bottom of your workbook, your sheets should be named so that if somebody else is going into your budget, they can see cash disbursements, cash receipts, master cash budget. And it's just like file folders. You wouldn't just throw them in there unlabeled, would you? Okay, and you don't have to rewrite these formulas. Once you write it once, just drag it across. Good. Okay, so now you're in 36. Overcut. And then you can just go over to opposite. Your return, and then just pull that, and then just go pull that cell over, and you've got your. Okay, so I've got my numbers in here. Everyone get those formulas wrote? Oh, I'm sorry. We've got one other thing, don't we? My bad. Do you guys know how to insert a row in here? How do you do that? Click on the little thing in here. It turns into an arrow, and then right-click, insert row. let's take a break from Excel and go and take a look at this and make sure we understand what all else was going on. So the first sentence talks about all sales are on account, blah, blah, blah. We've already done that. Monthly depreciation, we took that out when we did our payments. Now I'm starting with the statement, the note payable is due June 17th with interest for 4 months at 12%. Does that have to do with collecting cash or paying cash? Okay. The board of directors at their annual meeting agreed to declare a cash dividend of 30 cents per share in May, payable in June. Payments or collections? Payments. They also decided to purchase a computer with a $48,000 down payment of 40% and the balance in 3 equal monthly installments. Receipts or payment? Payment. The investments, including Halcourt bonds, matured early in June plus interest of $1,500. Receipts or payments? Okay. You better get that in here because that goes in with our receipts, doesn't it?
Can you put them both in one, or do you have to separate the bond from the interest?
I think you can put it all in one. I mean, it wouldn't be right or wrong one way or the other. But make sure to get that in. How much did I collect and when? And then you've got your final numbers here. So I'll give you a couple minutes to get that in.
So what would you use that bond invest?
Sure. Bonds matured or redeemed bonds or... Is it freezing in here this morning? I mean, my fingers are like slightly numb. Yeah, I didn't bring a sweater either.
But that goes on June.
It does. You can write whatever you want. Bonds mature, redeemed bonds. Did that throw anybody for a loop, or were you able to get that row inserted and get this in here? And of course, you have a formula in here. And you guys, when I say go hit auto sum, that's this little thing up in the far right-hand corner on your toolbar. And it will smart sum. It'll look at, but make sure to go up and check what it all picks up. Okay, 2228 and 358.4. All right.
I got 277.
No, 23, huh? Oh. Oh, that's, I don't have the balance, beginning balance in. Okay, yep, that's great. So whatever you've got, just leave it there. But we don't have our beginning balance in yet, do we? Okay, but that's fine. You've written the formula, right? Okay, what logically is coming next? What I spent. And I'm going to do a little subtitle here because there's a number of things under here that I need to list, right? What are you going to pick up first? Well, let's do it in the same way that we did it last time. What was the first line that we had? Yeah, I went and picked up my sub-schedule number, didn't I? So why don't we go pick that date up? We did that sub-schedule called what? Cash payments or cash disbursements, whatever. And I think we just have one number for May and one number for June, right? Didn't we total that? So you know how to do that. This is going to have another blue dot. You're going to do your equal sign and go get it on the other worksheet. 35.1. Now, you can choose to make these negative numbers if you'd like, but you certainly don't have to, but then you need to remember to subtract them when you write your formula. If you want it to show up as a negative, your formula is gonna be equals, minus, and then whatever your cell reference is, so that it shows up as a negative number. But if you don't want yours negative, that's fine. That's totally personal preference. And then what's my number over here? 163.5. Did everybody get those formulas in? You've got 3 more things to worry about here that we just read. I'd like you to go get those items entered. You have 3 more things. You've got a computer purchase. You've got to pay off a note. What else? Oh, some dividends.
I have a question about the notes.
Yes, please.
They can try and all in 1 month with them, or should these are paid?
Yeah, I think we accrued 4 months. Yeah. So you guys are calculating 4 months of interest, and they're just paying it all in 1 lump sum along with the note. Oh. So they're taking the amount that they owe on that note, and then you're calculating 4 months of interest all at one shot, and they're paying the note plus 4 months interest. Question?
I don't know, my June cash disbursement, right?
Awesome.
So let's go look at your sub formula, or your sub cash collections.
No, 4 months, you're right.
Okay, so this should be a formula. Because, would you do this with a calculator and then enter it there? Yeah, but that's not really using Excel. So I can't really check whether you're right or not. Oh, you've got your notes payable in there. This is just, this budget here was just for your operating expenses.
So are they paying that?
There you go. Right? Now, you're gonna do your next couple lines are gonna be your note, your computer, and your dividends. So, okay, so let's go to your main budget now. Okay, so go into B12. Yep. Click on B12. Yep, equals. Sorry, equals. Now go get your number. Yep. Do you want it negative or not negative? Well, yeah, but I got rid of it. Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you did. Okay, I'm sorry. This right here is just a subtitle for all the disbursements coming after.
Oh.
So there's nothing in there.
Oh, okay.
So actually, if you go into A11, and make that, italics or bolded or something that kind of shows, then you're gonna put operating expenses, then dividends, then, see what I'm saying? So now go get your number again, equals. Do you want it positive or negative?
It don't matter.
Okay, all right. There you go. Now you can just pull that over, can't you? You don't need to go back and do the formula again. Great, okay, now next line, dividends, whatever. Okay? Principal times rate times time. And what's time? 412. Okay. shares of outstanding stock do they have? 40,000. Yeah. Don't forget, if you started up there with your disbursements as a negative number, they would make all those negative. So, did you guys do that?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't. Oh, jeez, I lost it, but I have the.
Okay, which one are you working on? So when did I do my note? So I paid it in June. How are you gonna calculate the interest for 4 months? What? That's it, but it's not 4, it's 4/12. Don't forget, you guys, excuse me, with interest, your T is always over 12, right? 4/12. And the other thing is, you shouldn't even really have your calculator out. Everything you're doing, use Excel to make the calculation. So for example, you're not sitting there and doing the interest on your calculator and entering it in Excel. It is a calculator. It's a beautiful calculator. Right? So my formula says equals 20 grand plus 20 grand times 0.12 times 4/12. So I write that all in here. I can barely feel my fingers. How did I calculate my dividends? Times what? How I got my dividends. 200,000 bucks is in my stock account divided by $5 par value gives me the number of shares, right? And I got 30 cents a share, or I paid 30 cents a share. 12,000. 40% down on the computer, yeah? How much was that? 19.2. Why don't we total our disbursements here? And then you're going to have a line that takes what? You tell me. I think the depreciation already got taken out when we did our operating expense calculations on our sub-budget, didn't they? What's my next line going to be called? Total disbursements, right? I want to total up all these components. And when you have subtotals in a budget like this, I was just kind of showing Perry this, take your ones that are your subtotals and bold them or italicize them or do something, color the font different to show that, that it's a subtotal. See what I'm saying? So these ones that I've got the black around, I'm going to bold them or italicize them or increase the size of the font or turn it purple or whatever you want to do. So now I've got all the cash I had available minus all the cash I spent. What's the next line going to logically be?
The final when we subtract the bottom from the disbursements from the cash.
Yeah, I need, and that's just like you're doing your budget at home. What do I got coming in and what do I got going out? What do you want to call that? Well, this was my cash available.
They call it excess or deficiency.
Yeah, I mean, in my life and my budget, I'm going to call it, black or red, right? Black or I'm in the red. Surplus or deficiency. In accounting terms, it's an excess or a surplus, or it's a deficit or a deficiency or a negative balance. Honestly, I could care less what you call it, as long as you have the connotation that if you got a negative number in there, it's what?
So what if it's just under the amount that they want?
Well, we're going to get there. I think they call it excess or, what do they call it?
Excess slash deficiency.
Okay. My total disbursements in May, I think, were 135.1. Am I going to actually put a number in here or a formula? Formula equals, cash available minus cash spent. So it looks like I'm at 87.7. Since this is really the number the whole budget's coming down to, I'm probably going to dollar sign it and double underline it. Once you have that number, what can you do? Equals whatever the heck that cell was, right? So that if anything changes in May, that's going to change June. What if I went back right now and told you that my cash collections were 80-20 rather than 70-30? You should be able to go to your cash collections budget, change that, and everything in here would automatically update, wouldn't it? Let's see, so what was that number? 87.7. So the little blue dot means that's a formula that refers to something else I've got somewhere else. Sure. Once I get that 87.7 in, all my other numbers are going to automatically update in June, aren't they? So that cash available number is the 358.4. That's going to take my total disbursements. I guess I had that before. One more time. Okay, give me a second. I want to show you one more piece to this. I'll post this, but just give me a second. I want to make one more point that's real critical here. What if I told you that their board said that they had to maintain $100,000 of cash on hand at all times?
No, under the excess you add your financing.
Exactly. So stick with me here, you guys. My board says the minimum working capital that I can maintain at any point in time is 80 or is 100,000. What's my problem? In May, I've only got 87.7. The last section of your cash budget it's not really a note. I'm going to go to my working line of capital, working capital line, and I'm going to write a formula to borrow how much? So my formula is equals 100 grand minus whatever the cell is. For Wednesday, I want you to finish this off. The interest rate is 8% per year. You better write that down. For Wednesday, I want you to finish May and June, assuming that my board says I've got to keep 100 grand on hand. Here's the parameters. My working capital line is for $250,000, and it's 8% per annum. My working capital line, my access to borrowing is $250,000. My board says I need 100 grand on hand.
And you can borrow up to 250.
I can borrow up to $250,000, and of course I want to pay it back the minute that I can. How come? Because I don't want to accrue any more interest.
And that's
8% per annum. So on Wednesday, all we're going to do is we're going to come back and finish this off with this new parameter. We're going to go through 8-7, and I'm going to take all your homework for this chapter, and we're going to start on chapter 9. Sure.
Lisa?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a question about 87?
Yep.
So when we're going through and figuring out their financing,
Yes.
they